Welcome everyone. We are just getting set up here and we'll get started in a moment. Just got on about a minute early to make sure everything's looking right and hopefully showing up at the right direction. So we're going to check that and we'll get started in about a minute. All right, well, welcome. We are going to be making 25 Christmas cards. This is a kit that will have 25 cards, and if you had joined us for I think it was our anniversary celebration in the spring, I did an all occasions type card kit like this. But this is the Echo Park Christmas Salutations collection. So it's all types of pages just like this with all of these different sentiments, and we are going to turn them into cards. So I did 25. Probably could have done a few more. So here's just kind of a quick overview of them. I'm going to move them out of the way and we're going to go through and I'm going to show you how quick and easy it is to assemble them. And then from there, if you want to get kits for them, we will have those available. Everything will be cut for you and ready to go. So all you would have to do is assemble them. There'll be pictures and some basic instructions since they don't take a lot of details. So, hey Amy, good to see ya. Hope you're having fun watching everything. So let me just move these out of the way. And there does end up being 25. I was planning on 24. And I think a couple cards got stuck together because I counted them and I counted 24 and then I counted again and I counted 23. So I made another one. And then when I laid them all out, I ended up with 25. So we have 25 cards. So it's a 2 dozen plus a bonus. So I don't know how you do a baker's dozen for 2 dozen, but that's what we have. So I am just going to grab these. I do have them numbered and I have my pieces all numbered. And when you get them, they will be numbered as well, and are actually in separate envelopes, all the pieces that you need, so that you don't have to worry about what goes where. You'll just be able to pull them out, match it up to the picture and the instructions, and put it together. So we're just gonna go right through. I will show you these, show you if there's any little hints or tricks. These are pretty basic in the sense that there's not a ton of embellishments on them, but you would easily be able to add extra embellishments using some stickles or gemstones, sequins, whatever you might have on hand that you want to jazz it up with. You could easily do that. So on this one, I'm just going to attach the card front. So this was a 4x6 piece here initially. So I trimmed it down. Just take one of those 4x6s, trim a 1/4 inch off the top and bottom. And you can easily do that to make it fit a standard A2 card. You could also ink the edges up on all of these pieces. I'm not going to take the time to do that right now, but that could add a little extra pizzazz to your card. And you will have full card bases with envelopes. When I demo and put things on display, I do just card fronts because it's easier to make sure they stay and don't end up accidentally in someone else's materials during a class if they're card fronts and not cards. So instead of leaving, you could leave this making spirits bright, but I wanted to add a little extra by putting the happy holidays on. And I do love pop dots, foam tape, foam squares, whatever your favorite version of them are. So I am going to be using them just to give a little extra layer onto my card. They are always optional and completely up to you if you want to use them. I personally love using the thin foam squares that Scrapbook Adhesive makes, because they just add that dimension without adding the thickness. So when you're going to mail the card, you don't have to worry about extra postage and whatnot. So I just centered it right over that sentiment that was on there. So I have this little design top and bottom, and card number 1 of this set is done. So let's go ahead and grab the next one. I'm going to leave that one till later. So Jingle All the Way. Just find my little packet for that one. And this one is really, so one of the pages of the Salutations collection has 4x4 pieces on it. So I took another 4x4 that for me didn't speak to me as a Christmas card. It would be great as an embellishment, but like maybe on a scrapbook page, the way I would use it. So instead I cut it at a diagonal, and we're going to add it right on here. So it's almost a candy cane type effect by having that red and white stripe. I'm just going to line it up into my corners like so, and then do the same. So we will have these already cut, and all you would have to do is assemble them. But if you have paper like this, and hopefully it will give you some ideas on what you might be able to do to turn them into some really quick cards that don't take a lot of time, but still are a homemade card versus, having to go and buy a card for someone. Or maybe there's someone who would like a homemade card, but maybe they don't appreciate as detailed of a homemade card as you might give or make for someone else. So different ways to look at it, but I think these will be great just to have more cards to send out and see how quick and easy that one is done. Now I think I will go back and embellish some of these, probably using like some stickles, maybe using a Wink of Stella brush. Possibly I even thought taking a little sequin, putting it like as the dot on the eye. If you had a little tiny bell embellishment, that would be really cute on this one as well, just to go with the whole theme. This is Joy to the World, and this is another quick and easy one. We're using 2 different cut aparts from the sheets. We're actually taking one of the 4x6s again and had trimmed it down 1/2 inch to fit, and we're going to add Joy to the World right on here. And I think this one would look really pretty adding some stickles or Wink of Stella on it, just to add that sparkle, or if you had a few gemstones or pearls that aren't too bulky, that would go in the mail right in the center of some of your snowflakes, just to add a little extra pop. So those are all things that you can do if you like the sparkle, if you like the extra little embellishment, that's great. And if you aren't that type of person, and maybe you don't like the sparkle or the glitter, and I know we have customers that can't stand glitter because their friends try and taunt them with glitter at events, you wouldn't want to add any of that if that's not your thing. But if it is, you could easily put little dots in the center of your snowflakes and just add a little extra pizzazz. So our next card, we're going to use a couple strips of paper in order to put this one together and give a little more decoration on the background. And this is a combination. I also, in addition to the papers that I showed you at the beginning, I also took papers from their solids collection that coordinated with this in order to just give it that extra, kind of expand the use of the paper. And these papers have a red, two of them had a red and a green of different shades, and one had, I think it was a red and a black, because this collection has a good bit of black in it. So first one I'm going to put down with the red. And so this is a great way you can use with maybe scraps, or just wanting to add a little different texture to your background without using a embossing folder or using a patterned paper. And then I'm going to put the tape on the red side so that we can use the green. Put that down. Now, depending on how thick or thin you cut these pieces, you could easily have left a white strip in there as well, but I decided I liked the plaid over that center, so I have a smaller strip of the plaid that I'm going to put here. And the plaid is the back of one of the cut-aparts. So some of the cut-aparts I kind of went through and did a little picking and choosing of the ones that I would like for cards, and then identified the ones that I was willing to cut up. So I first go through, when I'm looking at the paper and trying to decide what to make and what cards to make, I go through and initially pick out which cut-aparts that I want to use, because I want to make sure that I don't accidentally cut them into smaller pieces. So yeah, stickles and Nouveau drops would be good for bling, and they dry nice and solid and non-glittery. So there's the next card, and I've lost count, and because these were not in any particular order, I don't have the count. So, but when all the packets are gone, we'll have done our Baker's 2 dozen. So this, the other thing I did a bit on some of these cards is I used little strips, because if you think, all of these cut-aparts are pretty much 4 inches for the most part. There's some smaller ones, but a lot of them are 4 inches wide, and our standard card is 4 1/4. So there's one of two things you can do with that. So you could trim your card down to 4 inches, and then you don't have to do anything else, or you can use strips of paper. So anywhere between, most of them are either 1/2 inch, or I mean 1/4 inch, or 3/8 of an inch, to put them down. And just, they add little borders, little extra embellishment, if you want to stick with your 4 1/4 inch wide card. But there's a few of them that I just trimmed the 1/4 inch off and made them 4 inch wide cards. So they'll still fit in the envelopes. Everything just about the same. And sometimes I do make these borders a little bit longer so that I can trim them off just to make sure they're not too short. So in this case, I want this to be behind, so I'm putting these down first. Then I'm going to layer these pieces. Now I could have trimmed this one down. It's another cut-apart that I wasn't using elsewhere. So I could have trimmed it down if I needed half of it for another card. I didn't, so I had just left it as is, but that is another way to get more out of the pattern papers and the cut-aparts, is to cut them into smaller pieces, which we will do on some of the other ones, and I will show you that as we get to them. But as I'm cutting and making cards, I keep a little pile off to the side of all my bits and pieces instead of tossing them right away. I like to just keep that pile off to the side. Just trying to get this somewhat lined up so that the 4 inches wide will be even, and that does not look quite even. Let's see. Might have to adjust it slightly once I lay the other piece down. But now I'm going to put the Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year on top. Right like that. And that does line up, so maybe it's just an illusion. But I keep a little pile of all those little bits that, especially when you're taking 1/2 inch off of a 4x6 or something like that, that's a 1/2 inch piece that, just like this, you can easily add onto your card to make an additional embellishment piece, or to make a bow, which we're going to do on some of the cards in a little bit. We'll just line that up with those edges, and we will have our next card. Now here's one, I'll pull it out, but I did start, I put a little bit of, I think it was a clear Nuvo drop on here just to highlight that in the Noel, but I knew if I tried to do that with all of them, and they didn't dry in time, we would have a big sticky mess right now. And I didn't want to have to worry about that. So what we're going to do here is center the Noel. So I didn't trim it down yet because I wanted to see how it would fit. I'm going to attach it down, and then I'll just turn over the card and trim off the edges. And then I have 2 pieces of plaid that I'm going to line up, I think, with the red line at the top. You could easily turn it and do it the other way and put the red in the middle. So go ahead and put the tape on these, put them down. And I left these a little bit longer so I could kind of see where those red lines in the plaid fell and decide where I wanted to place them, if I wanted to center them a little bit or line them up with each other, which I think I'm just going to line up the top and the bottom, because when I did the first card, well, they are pretty much lined up. I didn't think I had them quite aligned. So we'll do that, turn it over, just trim off the edges. So that's the other thing with a 4x6 cut apart. You can leave it the 6-inch length until you put it down on your card front, and then just flip over your card and trim off any excess. So in this case, I'm going to put my foam squares in just a bit because I know I'm going to trim a little bit off the edges, and I don't want to trim my foam off. And we'll center that and trim it, and then that one will be done. So just wanted to show you that you don't have to spend hours on every single card, or even a really long time. You can easily create cards that are still handmade and that you've put your love and creativity into without maybe spending a long time on them. I know I make cards for certain people that have more time and effort put into them because I know they appreciate them. I know they'll put them on display, things like that. But other people where you don't know, or maybe you know that they are going to look at them briefly and put them in a pile, you might want to still send them a handmade card, but maybe one that didn't take as much of an investment. So, or you just want to send a handmade card and don't have the time, the energy, or don't want to design them. This covers all the bases and still puts it out there, and I know will make people happy to get a card, because who doesn't like getting mail? How many times you go to the mailbox and wonder, is there going to be anything there for me today? Or maybe you have you've signed up for delivery notifications, so you know if you have anything coming, and you watch every day to see, is there any mail that isn't a bill? Is there any mail that's fun mail today, that's gonna happy mail? So these are designed to be happy mail for someone and bring a little cheer. So again, this came off a 4x6 card. Actually, the Noel that we just used, these were the borders on the Noel. So I wanted to just use the word Noel with a different paper. So I cut that 4x6 apart in order to get different pieces and recombine the cut aparts into what I liked. So you can do that too with any of your cards, and it doesn't have to be even the sentiment ones. You can take your cut aparts from other papers and cut them up, and just cut out elements that you like if you don't want the whole thing, and make an embellishment out of that. Alrighty, so now all we need to do is add the joy into here. And in this case, it looks like these are a little bit wider than the first sample. So you could potentially trim this joy down if you want more green showing around it. Again, that's just a personal choice. They're your cards, so you make them your own. And this joy also has these little dots, which if you had Nouveau drops or stickles or pearls or something, you could add a little bit of sparkle and embellishment onto this card. So we'll pop that down, and that one is done. Alrighty, so here's one that we're going to do, and we're going to make a little bow. And these were just out of some of the strips when I was cutting strips for the cards, and I cut a 12-inch strip off of the paper that was the 1/4 inch or the 3/8 inch wide, and then when you trim them down to fit your cards, you have little bits left over, and so that was part of my little pile on the side, and I used some of those pieces in order to make our bow. So let's get the base of the card assembled first, and then we will make the bow. So this one is sideways, a horizontal landscape versus vertical. Just going to pop that on the end there. And we're going to put our piece down to cover it, our snowflakes here. Put that down. So this was a 4x4 square, so just cut another piece that was a 1/2 inch or 1.5 inches to make the 5.5. And on this, you could pop this next piece down, or pop this up with some foam tape if you wanted to give it that little extra dimension. And now all we need to do is make our bow. Easiest way to make a bow is take a piece. I think this is about 2.5, 3 inches long. You could easily, use whatever size piece you have, and that'll just dictate the size of the bow. But you're going to just bend the two ends in towards the middle, and I have them overlapping just slightly. And at this point, I'm going to grab my liquid glue. Glue dots would probably work as well if you had those. I don't know that I would necessarily use tape runner, because if it comes undone, your bow will, for any reason, your bow will come undone. So I'm just gluing both of the ends, and you'll see pretty much there's just a little loop there. I'm just going to hold that to make sure it stays. And now in order to make the look of the bow, I just grabbed a couple different pieces, little pieces that I had left. I'm going to put it over the center and just fold the two ends around. So I have that look of a bow, and make sure it's centered there. And if you wanted to, you could have made it green. I didn't use the green or the black side because it was going against black, but we could do the center of the bow black. So maybe we'll do that on this one, just to show that there's options. We're gonna glue that end, add a little bit of glue, and pop that down. So now all I need to do is attach it right there on my strip. So I've got the glue handy. Foam square could work at this, pop dot or glue dot, whatever you have handy, whatever your favorite adhesive is, use it. I do like using these fine line tips for just getting nice placement of my adhesive. So there we go, we're done with that one. And let's move on to making spirits bright. And pull out this. So this one we're going to use some little strips of paper again to make some borders. And we'll get the bases assembled. So again, these were cut aparts. So we'll put them down, and because it's 4 inches wide, we've got that little bit of an edge to cover up. I'm going to go ahead and put that down. Pop that in the center, and then we're going to make our border strips. And to put these border strips together, I do like to do that kind of off my paper first, and then be able to just attach them as one piece. That way, if I need to adjust something, it's not attached to my card yet. All right. And when you're doing these, because you'll be working on folded cards, always make sure your card is facing the correct direction when you go to put your front pieces on, particularly with words. You wouldn't want to end up with it upside down or inside out, right side, you want them right side up. So in this case, what I'm going to do on these strips is add this thinner piece of red to make like a layer of ribbon, kind of like you're wrapping a package. I don't know if you get into wrapping and get excited about wrapping and decorating your packages, but if you do, then you might layer ribbons and things like that. So I had a little bit too much glue, so that I'm just kind of wiping that off. Give that a second to dry, and we'll do the second one. The paper pack on this is called Christmas Salutations. It's by Echo Park. So I find that their Salutations papers really make it easy to put together cards quickly, without a lot of extra time and effort to have to design something. You don't have to have stamps for all the sentiments or print them out or find the fonts and things like that. It's all done for you. All you have to do is cut them apart and put them together. So, all right, put the top back on here. You don't want that to get dried out. Well, not that it'll dry out, but sometimes if the glue gets dry in the tip, then you have to take it off and soak it and clean it out, which isn't hard to do if you ever do have that happen. All I do is I heat up water in my teapot, or boiling water, however you would make your boiling water. and put it into a bowl that is not going to melt, not a plastic bowl, but like a glass or metal bowl, some sort. And then I just take the whole tip end off and soak it. And that usually loosens up the glue and it makes it easy to clean out and work well. So there we go. We have our little ribbon borders on that. So sorry, I am trying to check the comments, but they keep disappearing off my screen, so I have to keep swiping in order to find them. So if I miss your comment, I will check afterwards and go through and respond if there's any questions that I missed. So, all right, our next card here. Again, another 4x6 cut apart, but this one I actually cut into the next cut apart so that I would get my 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch piece. And then on here, what I did is I used the border. Well, for the borders, I used these foam strips. These are also from Scrapbook Adhesives. They make these nice skinny strips, which just make it so easy to do borders. And if you like doing shaker cards, they work really well around a shaker card to make your strip. And you can do much thinner edge than a typical thicker tape, because a lot of foam tapes that are in strips tend to be a lot wider. So I just like these. I can trim them to length without having to cut them apart. And what I like to do with borders like this, when I'm using foam tape, you can put it right on the back of the piece that you've cut, but I just like to go ahead and put it right on the card. Then I know it's stuck where I need it to be. And I'm just going to line it up right there. Flip my card around. Pull off the other ones. And this one I am using both sides of the paper. So if you get the kit, you can choose, particularly with the solids, which side of the paper you like and use whichever one you wanted. So if you wanted them both to be the same color, you could do that. If you wanted them to be different colors, or the other side, you do not have to use what's in the sample, as such. You can definitely make it your own. Alrighty. Not sure how many we're at count-wise, but the pile's getting down, so I'm thinking we're probably about halfway through. And I think it's only been about 30 minutes, so if you can make 25 cards in about an hour, wouldn't that be nice? And wouldn't that make it easy to get your cards done and out? It might take us, then you just have to find all your addresses if you haven't have them on the list, so that you can send them out to people. All right, so this, we're just going to add some borders top and bottom and use one of our 4x6 cut aparts. And all right, I think I'm going to put just looking at how the plaid is, which direction I want it on my card. I'll line them up like that. And then I just need to center that in there. And I think this one is just going to go down flat. Good, getting that kind of centered between those two lines there. And next card is done. There we go. So this would be another one that would be nice to add that little extra embellishment with it, in order to add some extra pop to the card. All right, let's grab our next kit here. And yours will come, if you order the kit, will come in the actual envelopes with your cards and stuff. I put them in the little pouches so that my pieces didn't, you know, like accidentally get blown off or swiped off my desk area, and that I lose them and not be able to put them together. All right. This is another 4x6 that we're using. Oh, look at that. All right. And if you put the adhesive on the wrong side, we're just going to wipe it off. It happens. So I like it when I can wipe the adhesive off easily. Dots work well for wiping off, or if you're a repositionable tape person, that can work well too, to be able to move things around. But we're just going to line that up, kind of centered, so we'll have a little bit of white, but we're going to put a border around it. I'm going to put this down first with some thin foam. So we'll have a couple different layers on here if you use foam tape. Put this down in the center, and then I'm going to use the lines, which are the regular foam, the 2mm foam versus the 1mm foam. And I'm going to look here. I'm not going to quite center it because I want to be able to go back later and highlight these snowflakes here with the center. So you can see I did start it in here with some stickles. I don't know if you can see the sparkle on that, but adding a little bit of sparkle there on those snowflakes. So I'm going to go ahead and add my foam tape along the sides here so that I can add my borders on. And in this particular one, I did two colors just because I wanted to make it a little bit different from some of the others. You could also miter the corners. You could use all the same color. It's the same. It's using two sides of the same paper. So if you like things to match and don't like the unmatching nature of the colors, then you just flip it over and let it match. If you don't mind it being a little bit of different colors, then you could flip it around and use whichever color combinations you like. Just going to trim that down just a hair, and go ahead and get these pulled off. Take our longer pieces. So we'll do this opposite of the other sample. Let's put that down there. And right now I have nails and it's easy enough to pull the papers off, but sometimes if you need to get the backings off, you might want to use a pick or something like that in order for that to for them to come off easily. So I don't know, I was thinking this kind of looked more like maybe a wood frame where things would overlap one way or the other. So that's what I did on that one. And now we'll go to We Wish You a Merry Christmas. And pull those pieces out here. This one is another just nice and easy one. We're using actually all cut aparts from the same piece of paper. But using the different sides. So a lot of times too, if you're going to do this with paper that you have, what I like to do is I like to cut out the sentiments that I'm going to use and then try and move them around on the different papers and decide which one I really think it pops out on. Which design, you know, sometimes the ones that were very white like this really needed something darker to be against so that the message popped out versus putting them against a whiter background. So you can play with that and decide what you like when you're making your cards with any paper that might be in your own stash that has sentiments on it. You can do these with pictures of, you know, any kind of design on the paper. It doesn't have to be sentiments in order to make a card. It just works well for our Christmas cards to have all of these Christmas sentiments already done and ready to go. We're just going to pull those tape off and put our border on. And then we have some couple levels of dimension on this card for added interest. I think a little bit of some little red dots of stickles or something for these berries would be a nice little pop on that one. All right, next we have Merry Christmas to You. And this was, well, I have it listed as card 25. I can't say that it was the bonus card because it was a different card that I made for the one I thought I had missed. But we will get to that one. All right, now these were cut off the ends, or cut off of another piece. So we can easily repurpose them by making them borders on here. Put them on, and then we'll just pop our card in the middle. Now if you notice, we don't have an extra little 1/4 inch border that we need to add on this one because I trimmed this card base down to be 4 inches wide. By doing so, we don't need to worry about that extra 1/4 inch that we have to cover with anything. So we can just set that, put this 4 inch square right on here and not worry about what to cover that extra 1/4 inch with. So you can do that with any of your card bases. If you just, probably the easiest way is to open up your card base, put it in your trimmer, and trim a 1/4 inch off the edge, depending on what your orientation of your card is. So if you're going to do a card vertically like this, or portrait, you're going to cut it off the long edge, the 5.5 inch edge. If you're going to do it, I guess that would, yeah, whatever your 4 1/4 inch side would normally be, you're going to cut it off to make it a 4 inches wide. And then we don't have extra edge to worry about. And it still fits in all of the envelopes just the same. So it makes it easy to have a card and not have to worry if you don't like cutting those little extra strips to add on. So again, you make it your own, you make it fit your style. So, this one has a red and a green, but because of the green on here, I thought it looked better against the red. But you can always flip it if you like it a different color. Just going to add this right onto the front here. Try and even it up a little better. And I decided on this one just to kind of add a little extra framing on the top and the side, and I'll show you how to miter this corner here. An easy trick for mitering the corner. And we are going to glue our little red down the center first. So I'm going to just put that bead of glue down the center. Line this up. The glue does usually give you just a hair of wiggle room to line it up and try and get that centered. Add a little bit of glue down the center of that one as well. And put our little red strip right in the middle-ish. It's a little off, but that's all right. That's the beauty of it being a handcrafted card. So I'm going to add the tape. I did see a comment earlier about the tape not squeaking. Mine squeaks more when it gets to the end of a roll. So I don't know if you find that to be the case, but my tape runner will squeak at the end of the roll more. But I made sure I knew I would be using a lot of tape, so I used up what was on there so I could put a fresh roll in and not have to worry about running out. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put the piece down, but I'm going to show you how I miter my corner. And I would say it's a faux mitering because I'm not going to try and cut all kinds of angles to match things up, but I didn't like this look. I wanted the angled look, so I do the full length both directions. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut from this corner right here into the center, or the corner where it overlaps there. So I didn't fully push this down, and if you were gluing it with liquid glue, I would only glue up to this edge to begin with, do your trimming, and then go back and add a little bit of liquid glue underneath. So I'm just going to line my scissors up with those two corners, and now I have a mitered corner. I don't have to worry about if my paper is going to line up because I was trying to cut angles. It always lines up because the paper underneath goes completely under. So at this point, I am going to put a little dab of liquid glue here because I see this dried, but didn't quite hold the paper there. So, and there, that makes it nice and easy to have that finished look without worrying about if angles line up or having to do any math. So it's the math-free version of doing a mitered corner. Or geometry. I guess that'd be more geometry, which is a form of math. So, all right, we'll pop this on the front, and we are all done with that one. All right, well, our card pile is growing of finished cards, so that's good. We're getting down there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, we're over halfway. So we're making good progress. And Now here's one. Instead of having to cut a whole background piece on this, I took a smaller cut apart, one of the 4x3" ones, and cut it in half, and we're going to use that as the top and bottom border. So just going to add adhesive for that 1/4" border strips. Put those down. And now I chose to use the dark side on these, but you could easily use the red side as well because it would go with your card. Just your choice as to what you like and what your color preferences are. Line those up. These happen to be a little bit long, which is okay. That way we know they fit. Trim those edges off, and we'll add our top and bottom pieces of our snowflakes. Just pop those on there, kind of center it. It'll overlap just a hair on those border strips. Pop those on, and then all we need to do is add our Making Spirits Bright. So we can, if you love using pop dots, you can pop everything with your foam tape. If you want to make some that are flatter and don't have the dimension, that is perfectly fine too. All right, we're getting on to our Merry Christmas card. I'm gonna get this one. This one we just used the solid, so here's another one where you could have the option of putting it on the red, or you could put it on the green. So maybe I'll do this one on the green, just to show the contrast. Put this right on here. And now this was a 4x4 one, but it had a lot of white space around it. So I did trim off on here a bunch of the white space just to have more color on the card from the background. So we're just going to pop that in the center there. And this time we will use the red side up. In order to a little bit of excess tape there. And yes, if you have excess tape, just fold it back on itself. You don't need to trim it off at all because it's tape, it's double-sided, and it will stick to itself. I know I've had people who like to trim off that excess, which you can. It does, just to me, it takes a little extra time, and since it will stick to itself and it'll still be sticky, I just fold it over onto itself. So there we go. That one's done. Now this could be a fun one to even make a little bow on, like we did earlier. So if you have some extra scraps, which there'll be some extra pieces if you order the kit, you could easily do that with the pieces that you have. And add that little extra embellishment. Also, if you had twine or something that coordinated, that would be an easy way to add an embellishment as well. So here's another, these were 4x4 squares. So we're going to have that 1/4" extra at the top. Ah, I did it again. See, this is what happens when it's live. You get to see any mistakes. per se. And what I like to say is we don't make mistakes. We just have creative opportunities. So sometimes, like if that had been liquid glue or something like that, you might have had to just shift gears a bit and do something different. So on here, just putting this down, but then we still have that white strip at the top. So what I did with this one is I took some different colors. And some of these were just the pieces that were left from making pieces from other ones. And I first put on just the two long strips, but it decided it really needed a little bit of color in the center. So I'm adding the darker colors on either end. And then I'm going to add the red right in the center. So just kind of wanting to do something a little bit different with the colors. Kind of center that right in the center of our words. So there we go. Just festive little border there on the Very Merry. All right, this is a fun one. We're going to do another bow, but we're also going to just do something a little bit different with our cut apart. Let me get all my little pieces here so that we're ready to go. I like to staticky stick. All right, so here's just a different idea, something you can do. This, let's see if I can put it back together like a puzzle. This was a cut apart, but I really liked the border on it, and I wanted to use the border in some way. So I cut it into half and into half. And what we're going to do first, though, so that we can get things aligned the way we want them, is we're going to add our border strips on the edges of our card. And then that's going to be our guide as to how to align our corners to get that festive border. So we'll first put down our left and right borders. And in this one, if you're doing it from the kit, just be aware that you're going to have another piece that'll probably be a little bit shorter. That we're going to use for the bow, so just make sure you grab the right one. And I did wipe off that excess. Normally I wouldn't worry about that excess tape because something would be going over it, but in this case, because of the way we're using the corners, we didn't want to have that excess tape. So I'm going to put tape on the back of these, and then we are going to place them down first. So we'll get the first one. So this will be our top border. So I'm going to line it up with the edge and with the top here. And then the same, this is the bottom corner. I'm going to line it up with the border edge and right down there. Go ahead and add our adhesive down here. All right, I'm going to take this one, again, line it up with the left-hand edge and the top of the card. And this one with our left border and the bottom of the card. Just like that. There we go. And now I can take this sentiment and place it right over the center, line it up, and I have like a frame as well as kind of the look of having a ribbon, as if it was wrapping paper, going through the center. And then because it made me think of a package, I wanted to make a bow to put on it. So we're going to just take, again, do the same technique that we did before. Take a strip of our paper, and I'm gonna glue. Okay, let me make sure didn't put the lid on, so hopefully I haven't sealed it up. There we go. Just hold that down for a second, add a little bit more of that glue to hold the other side. Now the one different thing that we're going to do on this one is we're going to put the little ribbons hanging down from the bow. So we'll grab one of our short pieces here and we'll use that to go around the center. We'll just add a little bit of glue in the center of the back and wrap that around. And if it's too long, you could always trim it up a bit. I think it'll be okay. There we go. So then this will be able to sit right up here. But before we do that, I'm going to take these two short little pieces. I'm going to add a little dot of glue here and kind of give them a place to hang down. Now, if you don't want them that long, definitely trim them up. Or if you want to have like an angled edge, like you might trim up ribbon to have, you can do that as well. So we'll angle these edges and glue these down here, kind of in the center there. And then we'll glue our little bow right on top. Give that a second to catch. And there we have it. We have a bow on top of the package. All right, now we're going to dream about a white Christmas, which I guess if you like snow, that's a good thing. If you're not a snow person, you may not want to dream about a white Christmas, or you may not want to send this to a person who lives in a very warm climate, because they may not appreciate the thought of having snow for Christmas. This is going to be just a quick and easy border around here, but we will miter the corners on all four corners on this in order to just have a nice finished look. So I'm going to go ahead and add the long edge borders. And it really doesn't matter which order you put these on. You can just go around and put each one on and then miter the corners as you get to them. I tend to do one side and then the other side. But that's really a personal preference. So I'm just going to line the corner up, line that corner up there, and then not fully adhere that down yet so that I can take it. I'm going to line up from this outside corner to this inside corner with my scissors. And if you have a longer pair of scissors, that can be helpful just to match up those corners. So I have that nice mitered look on the edge there. I'm going to do that on this edge too. There we go. Now we just have one more corner to put down, or one more edge to put down, two corners to miter. And we'll line up that one. But again, we're just going to not fully push that down quite yet. Line up my outside corner to my inside corner. And again, if you're going to use liquid glue to glue things down, I would not glue, I'd only glue like inside of the border, trim it, miter your corner, and then add your dot of glue underneath for just for ease of not having things stick or have to be pulled apart. All right, we are getting down here. We do not have too many packets left to finish our Baker's 2 dozen. All right, we've got a 4x4 square. We have so this was a 3x4 that I just cut in half. Didn't think it looked real good that way, but I liked the black side. So we're gonna put those down first so that they are layered underneath. And I am getting towards the end of my tape, so it is starting to squeal. All right, we're going to pop those down there. This we're going to put right in the center here. You don't have to worry too much about whether they're perfectly aligned top or bottom, because we're going to be adding these borders on the top and bottom. Again, if you did not want to add the borders on something like this, you could always put trim your card base down to only be 4 inches and match up with the papers. So we'll just add that. Finish up that line. Again, these are foam lines by Scrapbook Adhesives. It makes it easy to do skinnier borders and be able to just pop them right onto our card, just like that. Pop this one on as well. And just trim off if there's any excess. And that one is done. Again, this would be a nice one to, there's a lot of little circles to do little extra embellishing on. All right. It's the most wonderful time of the year. This one we're going to make our background. Instead of cutting a full piece, we're just going to make our background out of strips of paper. So this is the same paper, just on their solids that has red on one side, green on the other. Get that put down. So I did the green and then the red, and then I had a strip of white in the middle. And the white is just from our card base. We don't have to cut another piece of paper for that at all. I'm going to layer our red. So it brings adhesive on the green. That done there. There we go. Line that up, and I guess I have a little bit extra on here, so I'll just trim that up. So I find I would rather cut something a hair too long and be able to trim it off than to have it too short. And then we're just going to pop that right onto the card front. And since this is bigger, I'll pop one in the middle. There we go. You know, this one, I don't know, made me think spaghetti and Italian, and so could make you hungry if you think of it that way. All right, we've got 3 left here, so we're gonna just buzz on through them and see that in what, a little over an hour or so, we have had a 25 cards done. So now I just have to pull out my list and my envelopes and start addressing them. So I have no excuse this year, since I've now done this twice and have 50 cards ready to go. Alrighty, so we're going to put that down. This one we're going to just do another border on it as well. So I'm going to pop this into the center with thin squares, and then I'm going to use the thicker lines for the outside edges and miter those corners. So you don't have to, have a completely new technique for every one of the cards. You can reuse techniques that you've already done. But each card's going to look different because you're using different papers, different sentiments. And just remember that in most cases, you're not sending the same card to the same person. And most people aren't going to be seeing the cards that you send to someone else. So it doesn't matter if you reuse techniques or make cards slightly different from each other, because no one will, for the most case, will know. Maybe you'll have a friend or two that would see the card that you sent to another friend, but I would say most people will not see it, and you can reuse the techniques as much as you need. So there we go. Get that around there. I'm going to put our long edges on first this time. Pop those down. Pop our other edge on, literally, because we're using foam tape, so it is being popped. And now, because I used foam tape on this, there is not going to be adhesive on those corners. Like we did the last one, I think we put the tape on and put it straight down. So there was adhesive under the corners. These do not have any adhesive under the corners. So in this case, I will want to put a dot of glue after I miter them, just to keep them down and from popping up. So we can quickly slide our scissors under and miter those corners. There we go. It's a little overlap, so I'm just going to trim that off. Miter this one. And the last one there. And there we go. That is done, and I could easily go back and just add that spot of glue underneath the corners to keep those in place. More to keep them from catching on anything, particularly when you're sticking it into an envelope. Sometimes the little things get caught. So just glue those edges down so that it's nice and easy. All right, we are down to our last two cards here. So we are going to start with this one, which reminded me of an envelope. So if you take I think this is the same size as the front, so you could do a whole thing. Or if you wanted to change things up, you can't just flip it over. Just so you know, if you're not using a square, you're using a rectangle with uneven, not four even sides. You cannot just flip like this because it won't fit. So just FYI, you would have to cut 2 and be able to cut them from each side, each color. So you'd have to cut one green one like this, and then you'd have to cut the red side with the same angle if you wanted to match up the 2 angles. So instead, we're going to make an envelope type look and put a seal on our envelope. So we're going to take one color and put it down, and you can pick whichever color is your favorite to have the predominant color. We're just going to line it up on one edge. And we're going to grab another tape runner here, since I managed to almost get to the end. I did do some other projects with these, so with that tape runner. But now we have the look kind of an envelope, the back of an envelope. And on this one, you could put it straight down on here if you like, but I decided I was going to just quickly cut out this oval. Made me think of putting a seal or a sticker on the back of your envelope. So I cut it out. And it was a nice, easy shape to cut out. Add a couple of foam squares on the back. And pop it down. Oop, right side up. And there we go. And I think this one could benefit from a little extra bling on it with the Christmas or something. So I'll probably go back and add something to that. And this is our last one. This one, I just had fun. I was, I don't know, kind of thinking quilt-like. And I do need to trim this one down a bit. I realized I did not do that. So I did want to, this one is a bit smaller. I thought I had trimmed it. Let me just quickly grab my trimmer and trim that down. And I did it because I wanted it to line up with my, I'm using 1-inch squares on this one. And in order to have the squares line up and not have to do as much math when it comes to 4 1/4, 5 1/2, what size squares to use, I wanted to just make it even inches. So take off a 1/2 inch on the 5 1/2 inch side, 1/4 inch on the 4-inch side. And then I also, on this cut apart, I trimmed off some of the excess so I would have more of the border to see. So we're going to use these different squares, and let's see here. I was looking to see if I had, this is one where if you had lines of tape, you know, like a roll of tape that you wanted to put down and then put your squares on, that could work well for that. So I'm just going to put adhesive around the edges because we're not covering the center. We're just going to cover the edges here. So we'll just go ahead and take the squares and start placing them. So I'm just going to start in one corner. And you can use whatever pattern you like. I like being kind of symmetrical, I guess. So I was working on kind of making a pattern with my squares. But you do you, and you make it fit whatever pattern or design you would choose. What makes you happy. So I'll go along here. And again, these squares are two-sided with color, so just pick the side you like. Let's see here. I'm just trying to think what my right side up is going to be so my flower is not necessarily upside down here. I'll put another square there. Actually, I think I'm going to flip that to black. Do it like that. There we go. And there. Add my floral piece. Doesn't really matter if they're not perfectly centered in the middle, because that's going to be covered up. What you really want to make sure is your outside edges are all aligned. And then a few foam squares on our last piece, and we will have had all 25 cards completed. So we'll get this final one. We'll pull them all back out for a look. And thanks for watching and playing along. There we go. So this is also another great way to use up scraps of paper. You can easily cut your papers down, or use up pieces that you have left and you want to do something with them. So let's just take a quick look here at all of our cards. We'll just kind of sort them out so you don't see all 50 of them at the same time. But the kit has 25 cards in it. Just kind of show what they are again. And let's take a look at all of the different ways and the quick ways that we can make cards. And I don't know, I'm not sure quite how long we went, but I think in a little over an hour, if we made 25 cards, I think that's a pretty good way to get your cards done. So here we go. Again, if you go back now and add some embellishment, if you want to add a little extra on, you could easily add a little bling of some sort to brighten them up even more. But there you have it. Thanks for hanging out and playing along, and we'll have the information for the kits up if anyone's interested in being able to quickly put together 25 cards. Have a great evening.